Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the first edition of this semester X's and O's. I'm your host, Eric Bunnell, along with my guest, co-host. He's gonna be my co-host throughout the year, Jay Lennander. Jay, Super Bowl just happened on Sunday. Before the game even started, what were you feeling? Were you feeling the Patriots were just gonna run away with it, or the Eagles were gonna keep it close?
I thought it was going to be another Patriots Super Bowl. We'd seen it so many times before that it's just kind of like, here we go again. No matter what your feelings are on who you wanted to win or who you didn't want to win, it always feels like the Patriots are going to come away with it. So that's kind of the feeling I had, and I was putting my money proverbially on the Patriots, but I don't know. I just really didn't care either way, regardless of who you thought on paper was going to win or who you thought had a better chance of winning. It really came down for me to just, it didn't matter. Either the Eagles were going to win and I was going to feel bad because they beat the Vikings, a feeling that I know you cannot reciprocate. But if the Patriots won, then it's just another Super Bowl for the dynasty. And as a Vikings fan personally, I think I would rather have the Patriots just get another Super Bowl, because at this point it's just like, it's just another one, rather than the Eagles, who just completely outplayed the Vikings getting all the way there. Although it is funny that last time the Vikings got beat in the NFC Championship game, I was kind of rooting for the Saints for some reason, but I was young and delusional, so who knows exactly what that meant.
Well, for me, I mean, the Eagles, Carson Wentz. I was rooting for Carson Wentz all year. I've been rooting for him all year. I mean, throughout the whole year. I think I went 14-2 in pick'ems when I picked the Eagles this year. Not terrible. Picked one of their 3 losses against the Chiefs, and being from Wisconsin, I did not want to see Minnesota play in their home stadium. I mean, I know as bad as that sounds, I'm a Packers fan, and I was rooting for the Eagles, but even if Carson Wentz was playing in that game, I feel like you still would have tore that defense apart, because you watched that Eagles-Viking game in the beginning, and you watched Carson play in the beginning, and he shredded the Rams. Mm-hmm. And the Vikings put up 24, but Carson put up 35 on the Rams.
Yeah, and the thing if Carson was playing, my whole opinion of the situation would change. Like, if Carson was playing, I wouldn't feel that bad that they beat the Vikings, because I would have been expecting them to lose. When Carson was healthy, the way the Eagles have been playing, there's no way the Vikings could have beat them. But the fact that Nick Foles was the quarterback, that's what upset me. So if Carson would have been playing, I would have been rooting for them the whole way through. I would have wanted them to win the Super Bowl. It's just I didn't want them to pick up the first Philadelphia Super Bowl without him as the quarterback. It just doesn't feel right to me, and it kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
And you mentioned Nick Foles. Nick Foles and Case Keenum had one thing in common in the NFC Championship game. They both were backup quarterback under Jeff Fisher.
Yep. 2015 St. Louis Rams. They had it down. They just didn't stick with the plan.
And I mean, Nick Foles had that playoff experience before. He came in with Chip Kelly. They went 10-6. They did that, and for him, I think he said it best was just he said it, I can't remember his quote, but he's like, prepare for the worst. It was basically what his quote is saying, and after they won the Super Bowl, he's like, don't be afraid to fail, because that's what the NFL is. You can't be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
And then just the beginning of the game, I mean, Eagles went down, kicked the field goal, 3-0. Patriots go back, do the same thing. And then both kickers missed an extra point and a field goal.
Yeah.
Does Minnesota have a kicker's curse?
I mean, it's at this point, you'd honestly have to say, yeah, probably. I mean, they didn't have any problems when Ryan Longwell was the kicker, but he never really found himself in that situation. If he had been, if the game in 2009 had come down to a field goal, at this point, I'm inclined to believe he would have missed. It's just the issues that the Vikings have at kicker. It's just honestly probably more psychological than like actually picking kickers that tend to do bad things in tight situations, because there's sort of this pressure now on Vikings kickers that it's like, okay, Blair Walsh missed a 29-yard field goal that some guy on Vine went and hit in his backyard like 30 minutes after the game was over. And he's getting all this money. He was projected to be like a really good kicker coming out of college, and he was that first rookie year. He set a bunch of records, and it just kind of fell apart. It's almost just completely psychological as in terms of me seeing it. And going back to Nick Foles for a moment, it's a really incredible story, and I would argue more of like an unbelievable story than Case Keenum was, because Case Keenum, it was the second week that he came in and became the quarterback. So he had all year to sort of get in with the offense and just sort of gel things together. Nick Foles came in, was it week 14?
Yeah,
15?
week 14, week 15.
Something like that. And he struggled at first, of course, but once the playoffs hit, he played insane. He played himself into some money, very likely, in that his numbers were up with the names of Joe Montana and another big-time quarterback who I can't remember who it was. But he played incredible. He was unstoppable. The way that Case Keenum looked at times during the regular season, but when it counted, Case Keenum couldn't pull through. But Nick Foles looked incredible in the NFC Championship game, and he became the Super Bowl MVP. If you told someone in 2015, the St. Louis Rams fans maybe, that Nick Foles was going to be your Super Bowl MVP, who would have believed it, honestly? Because the way he looked that season, they brought him in to be their kind of savior in a clinch spot, and it didn't work out. I mean, you tell the Kansas City Chiefs fans that their backup quarterback is going to be the Super Bowl MVP the next year. A lot of people aren't going to believe that. And it's really just an incredible story how he turned it around. And not a lot of backup quarterbacks in this environment where it's either really old players who are past their prime or rookies that are getting trained in. Not a whole bunch of players could do what he did, and most likely don't get the chance to. And that's why it's a really incredible story that will definitely live forever in Eagles lore, if not the entire NFL.
You bring up Nick Foles. We're going to go into the trick play situation now. Tom Brady, Danny Amendola had Tom Brady wide open. I mean, he had 10 yards around him of clear space. And is it just his age that he couldn't catch up to the ball? I mean, just watching that play.
He was wide open, of course. It was a little overthrown by just a smidge. If that would have been a receiver, of course he would have caught it. But this is 40-year-old Tom Brady, who's never been known to be the most mobile, agile quarterback. So, of course, he's not going to be able to catch up to that ball. It was close, so give him credit for that, but that's as much as you get. Close doesn't count. He didn't catch the ball, and that was a big game changer in the game. Nick Foles, he's 10 years younger. He's able to move a little bit. He's not Tom Brady slow or Peyton Manning slow. He can move a little bit, which is why he was able to get out there. And it was just a better play call from the Eagles at the time. Like the New England play, it just didn't have as much movement as the Eagles play did. It didn't come as big of a situation as the Eagles play did, and that really played into Philadelphia's hands. And I think that's why that was a more important play.
And you talk about the Eagles play, Nick Foles, he just kind of walks up to the line of scrimmage. He kind of acts like he's just not even going to do anything, and it looks like Corey Clement. It's like he's going back to his college days. He's going to take it right off tackle, right in the end zone. Instead, he pitches it to the former Florida quarterback, Trey Burton, and Burton just hits Foles wide open in the end zone, and Foles had it all. Foles, all he has to do is just look it in and catch.
Yep.
I mean, it's just like pitch and catch in your backyard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there were some people crying foul on that play. I mean, of course, as soon as the Super Bowl ends, like 5 minutes within it being ending, you see all the articles online. Was the Nick Foles touchdown catch illegal? Was it an illegal shift or whatever? Blah, blah, blah. And I don't know. Who cares? It clearly wasn't called, so it doesn't matter. But it was a big play. And had I been, I almost missed it, honestly. I was going to get some milk or something from the fridge. I just happened to come back in time to see, they're doing a 2-point conversion. The rest is history.
Yeah, I mean, down 22-12 at the half. We've seen it all before. The Eagles are going to the locker room, long halftime performance, and we'll get back to the second half when we come back. Welcome back, everybody. We are here at Herding Horns talking the second half of the Super Bowl. Jay, the Eagles had all the momentum, trick play going into the half. They're up 22-12, but it's a long halftime. We've seen it before. Tom Brady and New England down 28-3 to Atlanta. Look what happened last year. What's going through your mind at half, and what do you think was going through the Eagles' mind at half, knowing that New England has that firepower to come back?
I think everyone kind of had the same mentality going into halftime. Everyone except for the Patriots, because they are the Patriots. But everyone's mindset was, this is in no way over. And that was the mindset until the very last play. And you could hear it in the broadcasters' voices and what they said. They were very much like, this is not over as long as Tom Brady is still living and breathing and has time on the clock to throw that football. And from halftime, that's exactly what the case was in terms of my opinion. I was like, okay, the Eagles have a lead, but touchdown Tom is going to come out slinging, and he came out slinging. They mounted the comeback, evened it out pretty darn quickly. Like right away, they came down the field and scored with Gronk. That's just kind of what you have to expect when you're watching a Patriots game, is that at some point they're just going to drive. And I mean, at halftime, that was kind of the mentality. I guarantee you the Eagles were in no way saying, oh, we got this at halftime with only an 11-point lead. No way.
No. Yeah, and I agree with you. Like, there's no way the Eagles, they're like, after what happened last year to the Falcons, we just got to keep playing our ball, keep doing what we're doing. We got to try to stop them on defense, because their offense is just tearing us apart left and right. They're moving down the field. And I remember one of the announcers, I can't remember if it was Al Michaels or Chris Collinsworth, but he talked about Matt Patricia. His defense is bend, but don't break. Mm-hmm. Well, in the first half, they were breaking a lot. There was a lot of wide open wide receivers. But let's go Corey Clement touchdown. I mean, he has one step, two step. He gets it in. Then it looks like he bobbles the ball a little bit and gets his foot on the line. I mean, do you call that a catch, no catch, or do you just do you have to go with the call on the field because there's not enough evidence as he looks like he's kind of shifting it to tuck it in. Mm-hmm.
I think in terms of that play specifically, it kind of goes to the big complaint that a lot of people, a lot of fans, a lot of coaches have had this season about that catch rule, is because it's so vague and ambiguous, it doesn't really give referees or anyone a good guideline as to what a catch is. And you could see that in this play and the Zach Ertz play that I'm sure we'll address later. But especially with the Corey Clement play, the fact that they called both of those touchdowns, honestly, I don't think they would have during the regular season, because we saw the Jesse James play in Pittsburgh versus New England. That play was very similar, especially to the Ertz play. But there are so many examples of players who might be bobbling the ball a little bit, who might have not taken the right amount of steps. Do they have possession? These are things that people should know. The referees should sit down and create a guideline as to, okay, is this a catch? Is this not a catch? So that there is no doubt when it comes to these kind of plays in the Super Bowl, no doubt as to what a catch is or isn't. And I think that that's the fault of the league, and definitely something that they'll have to look at over the offseason, especially with the XFL coming up. Now they've got some real competition. So they need to look at the rule book and say, okay, fans don't like this, coaches don't like this, players don't like this. We need to either say, okay, here is how this is going to be, or change it up so that there is a clear definition of what a catch is. So stuff like this that we saw all season doesn't happen again moving forward.
Yeah, and you mentioned, we'll just skip right to the end of the game, because that's where it really gets interesting.
Oh, yeah.
New England drives down. They scored a touchdown with Gronk. Take the lead 33-32, or it was tied 32-32. Mm-hmm. Minnesota kicker Gostowski could miss the extra point, but he made it. Then Nick Foles drives down the field and he scores with Zach Ertz, and that catch, you just brought it up. Mm-hmm. He turns into a runner, but then he loses the ball as he dives over the pylon. Mm-hmm. And then, he brings it back in, and it looks like it bounces off of him. Mm-hmm. Did he turn a runner, or is that a no catch?
The way I saw it when I was watching the replay, I mean, I was kind of more riding the emotions of the game and being kind of unsure as to who I wanted to win. It kind of clouded my judgment. But even in that mindset, when I was watching this game, I was pretty sure this one was a catch, because compared to the Jesse James play, which is what even the broadcasters at the time were comparing this catch to, it was much more clear that there was 3 steps and that he should have become a runner by the time he started diving, and by the time the ball came loose, he had crossed the plane, and I believe that one was a touchdown. I think they got that call right definitively, but still the fact that there's even a little bit of doubt within that, and that people, I mean, if I remember correctly, the broadcast booth was saying that it should be called back, or it was either that or the Clement one, but one of those they were saying, oh, it should be called back, and then they were saying that very definitively, this is probably going to be called back, folks, but they were both upheld and called touchdowns, and it's just really something that shouldn't be happening moving forward. But on the Ertz catch, I do think that one was for sure a touchdown. He had possession by that point.
And the Eagles end up going for 2 on that play again, and they fail yet again. They go 0 for 2 in the Super Bowl on 2-point conversion. Do you think it was smart, just going back to early on, do you think it was smart to go for them to go for 2 at the time, or would you just rather kick the field goal, or take the extra point and take the 1 point versus the 2, or 1 point that's or 97% guaranteed, or the 2 point that's 50-50?
Oh, they had to go for the 2 point in that situation. If I remember correctly, it was a 5-point game. 6 points doesn't make a difference, but making it 7, that does make a difference. That sends it to overtime if Tom Brady comes back and scores. They had to go for it. Whether they made it or not, it didn't matter, because they end up sort of in the, whether they had made a field goal or they miss a 2-point conversion, they end up in the exact same situation. New England still needs a touchdown, and if they get it, New England wins the game. I mean, with a made PAT, which is by no means a guarantee in this game. But if they make the PAT, then the Patriots win. If they get the 2-point conversion and they complete it, then it's a tie game, is the best the Patriots can do. Or they force the Patriots to go for a 2-point conversion, which they would not do in their right mind. So the Eagles absolutely had to go for the 2-point conversion, and them failing doesn't really matter in the end.
Next kickoff, next drive, Tom Brady gets stripped. I don't know if you want to call it a strip sack. He gets hit, fumbles the ball. Brandon Graham forces it. And I believe Derek Barnett.
Yep, Barnett fell on
it, runs away with it. He's all happy. But there's still 2 minutes and 4 seconds left.
Yep.
The Patriots have 2 timeouts and the 2-minute warning. If you're Eagles fans, what's going through your head at that moment in time?
Well, what was going through my head as a Vikings fan was that the Vikings are cursed, because Derek Barnett is the player that the Eagles received for Sam Bradford in that trade. And I had kind of fogged up a little bit there. I thought that Derek Barnett had been the one who strip sacked it, because it moves so fast in real time that you just don't know. I thought Derek Barnett had strip sacked him and recovered it, and I was like, oh, of course. Yeah, but that's the perfect way for a Vikings fan to have the Super Bowl, and the player we gave away ends it all. Then once I saw it back, and it was Brandon Graham who strip sacked it, not really strip sacked, but stripped for sure. He stripped the ball loose. And it was, as an Eagles fan, that's kind of your moment to celebrate, but of course, once you kind of realize how much time's left on the clock, you kind of snap back into reality and realize that Tom Brady's going to have the football back.
And they were in field goal range for Jake Elliott. They end up kicking a field goal with about a minute 5, I think. Minute 5, minute 10 left, and then they have to kick it back to Tom Brady.
Yep.
Very dangerous. The Eagles stop him on the first 3 downs. 4th down, he completes a pass to Rob Gronkowski right over the middle, or is it Danny Amendola?
I believe it was Gronkowski.
Gronk, his go-to guy. Has been his go-to guy pretty much all season.
Yeah, because people were worrying he was gonna cut inside, but then he stepped out of bounds. It was definitely Gronk.
Yep, Gronk, he hits him. Then at about 49 at the ball at the 49-yard line, because he hit Gronk yet again. No surprise there. 4 seconds left, pardon me. Tom Brady has the ball, throwing it, gonna go take a shot for the end zone. It's going through my head at that time. I'm like, are we going to see an Aaron Rodgers Detroit Lions game? Aaron Rodgers Arizona Cardinals. Not many people remember that game when he had pretty much two Hail Marys on the same drive to keep that game alive, and they ended up losing to Larry Fitzgerald and the Cardinals.
I try and block everything Aaron Rodgers does out of my head, so of course I forgot about it. But yeah. And
then Aaron Rodgers against the Giants. I was like, oh no, here we go again. It's gonna happen. The Eagles are gonna lose just like that, and then Tom Brady just flings it up in the air, and I'm like, and it feels like the ball's hanging there forever. Like, it takes me back to North Dakota State. James Madison when Shore threw it up at the end with a minute, but this was a little over a minute left, and then you still had to run out the clock. And then you have 6'7", 6'8" Gronk down there. How do you defend that guy with that? You just throw wide receivers out there and hopefully they can out-jump them?
I mean, what they kind of did was they just swarmed. It was just every Philadelphia Eagle they could put back there was back there, and they just covered him pretty well. They just prevented him from making a play. It was closer than they'd want it to be, but they still had guys on him, and it ended up working out. He wasn't able to get really anywhere close to the ball. It was deflected around a little bit, but dropped to the ground, and as long as Gronk didn't have a clean shot at it, it was as good as the Eagles could hope for.
And Nick Foles eventually got the MVP, but before we get to that, Wisconsin running backs in Minnesota, James White, Corey Clement, they keep tearing it up. James White last year I believe he had 3 touchdowns, 14 receptions, like 110 yards. And now Corey Clement joins him as 2 of 3 running backs to have over 100 yards. He had 4 receptions, 100 yards, and a touchdown. And the other one escapes me. I think it was Roger Staub. I don't remember what his name. I think his first name is Roger, but I could be wrong. But after the game, I mean, you see all the emotion from the players, the fans, like. Even Kevin Hart was on the field. He even tried to get up into onto the podium where the trophy was, where Peterson, Wentz, and Foles was. Did you think Tom Brady deserved to be MVP? Do you think Tom Brady deserved to be MVP of that game, or did it belong to Nick Foles?
I mean, it's kind of almost tradition at this point that it goes to someone on the team that wins. Like, it's almost one of the criteria that you need to win the game in order to be the most valuable player, because it's just kind of how it logically works. So in my head, of course, it makes sense that Nick Foles, the quarterback for the winning team, would be the MVP. I almost think just because of how important it was that Brandon Graham should have been given more consideration, because that play completely turned the game around. And it was like sort of the last moment that definitively changed the tides of the game and made everyone say, oh, the Eagles could win this game. But, of course, the quarterback's going to get special consideration. So I absolutely think that Nick Foles deserved to be the Super Bowl MVP, as strange as that sounds.
I mean, I know Carson Wentz, and his former NEC quarterback. Take a look at his last 7 seasons. FCS Championship, FCS Championship, FCS Championship, FCS Championship, FCS Championship, 7-9, Super Bowl champion. Mm-hmm. That's 6 championships in the last 7 years.
Yep.
I mean, not many people can repeat that history.
No, it's pretty crazy. Like, how consistently good the teams he's been on have been speaks to his ability as a leader. We all know the kind of guy Carson Wentz is. He's a very down-to-earth, humble kind of guy, and I think that presence in any locker room really transitions into a really winning mentality and just a good way of playing football.
And now, just take a look at moving forward. The Eagles pretty much have their core locked up. Carson Wentz, Alshon Jeffrey, Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson, Jason Peters, Zach Ertz. They got locked up. They got 6 guys locked up through 2021. Mm-hmm. What's ahead for their future?
I mean, I think they just need to keep drafting smart and kind of build around what they've already got. This is the team they're probably going to be working with. I mean, the offensive line looked really good this year. They had some injuries to Jason Peters, of course. The fact that they were able to get by without him is also outstanding. They lost their middle linebacker in Hicks, and so they've lost their real signal caller on defense. They lost a lot of players. Sidney Jones, who was their second-round pick, was kind of hurt all year. I mean, he kind of got hurt even before the draft, which is why he fell to them in the second round. But they've got a lot of players that they've kind of going to have sticking around. They've built this core that when Carson comes back, and if he's playing, he stays healthy, he plays healthy, it's going to be an absolute terror to watch. The Eagles are probably going to be a really good team for a long time now.
Now, take a look at the other side, the Patriots. They just lost their offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. McDaniel's going to Indianapolis. Patricia going to Detroit. Gronk considering retirement. Malcolm Butler didn't even play. He's all ready to play for next year.
And he's a free agent.
And he's a free agent, so he's going to be ready to play next year. Mm-hmm. He's going to go to a Super Bowl contending team. Maybe he'll re-sign with New England.
There were so many rumors about the Saints that it almost seems like a foregone conclusion that that's maybe where he could end up. But yeah, the New England Patriots have lost a lot, but we've seen them lose a lot before. As long as Tom Brady is still the quarterback, as long as Bill Belichick is still the head coach, they will attract people to come get there. They will They will draft well. They've always consistently drafted incredibly well. The Patriots are not going to die as long as Belichick and Brady are still around. Now, if Brady decides to retire or something crazy like that, because they just traded Garoppolo, that's where they'd run into problems. But as long as Brady is healthy and playing and Belichick is still their head coach, I don't think the Patriots will have any problem putting together a good team year after year.
And the Eagles pretty much, and we didn't touch on this, but the Eagles have a great problem to have. They have quarterback 1A and 1B. Carson Wentz, Nick Foles. Is Carson going to be healthy for the first part of the season, or is Nick Foles, are the Eagles going to kind of play precautionary measures with him and have him sit out maybe the first 4 weeks of the season, because that ACL puts him out till the first weekend of September at least, if not a little bit more.
Yeah, Carson says he wants to be back for week 1. He says he thinks he will be able to come back for week 1, but you never want to rush these things unless you're Adrian Peterson, who's just some superhuman who can just regenerate his ACL cartilage like no one ever before. But you have to play it safe. But if he's ready to come back, of course he's the starting quarterback, and he'll be the guy as soon as he's ready to play.
All right, well, that is all the time we have today, folks. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Herd and Horns, for X's and O's. He's Jay Lennander. I'm Eric Bunnell. Catch us right here next week, Tuesday at 6 o'clock p.m.